There is absolutely no excuse for what happened tonight. This team got outworked, out-hustled, out-coached. I don't ever want to hear Stephanie White and defensive guru ever put together again.
That's not frustration, that's not disappointment, that's a fan watching something fundamentally broken in real time. And what happened on May 20th, 2025, when the Indiana Fever got absolutely dismantled by the Golden State Valkyries, an expansion team in their inaugural season, exposed a coaching disaster that's been building for weeks. The Fever lost by double digits on national television. But the score doesn't tell you the real story.
Caitlin Clark came out once again with her hair on fire. Stephanie White benched her. What are we doing? By the way, expansion team officially has a better record than the Indiana Fever. What is there to talk about? I don't have one positive.
Here's what actually happened that night. Caitlin Clark came out aggressive, looking to attack early. 3 minutes into the game, Stephanie White pulled her. Not because of foul trouble, not because of an injury, she just benched the league's most dynamic player during her hottest stretch. And the Valkyries, a team that didn't exist 6 months ago, immediately went on a run. By halftime, Indiana was down 13 points, shooting 31% from the field, 1 for 10 from three-point range. The body language on that bench told you everything. This team had quit on their coach.
Unbelievable. I mean, embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. For the Indiana Fever, I mean, wow. Wow. What can we say? What is there to say about this? About this game?
Nine of 29 shooting in the first half, against an expansion team, on ABC, with millions watching. The Valkyries didn't just win, they embarrassed Indiana. They out-hustled them on every loose ball. They out-executed them on every possession. They looked like the veteran team while the Fever looked lost. And that falls directly on coaching. When an expansion team plays with more cohesion and purpose than a team with established stars, that's not a talent problem, that's a system problem.
The W360, I'm a huge fan of CJ. Go subscribe to her YouTube channel. Bro, what the hell is up with the sub timing? Why the hell is AB and CC sitting so long early? God only knows. Like I said, Caitlin Clark came out like her hair was on fire. Stephanie White pulled her, I believe, 3 minutes. 3 mother effing minutes into the game. And it was a wrap. It was a wrap.
Let's talk about substitution patterns, because this is where Stephanie White's decision-making becomes indefensible. Caitlin Clark got pulled after 3 minutes when she was playing with energy and aggression. She sat for extended stretches while the Valkyries built their lead. Meanwhile, Monique Billings, the veteran forward Indiana signed specifically to add depth, played less than 8 minutes the entire game. Not because she was ineffective, White just didn't use her. So you have your best player sitting, your new acquisition riding the bench, and an expansion team running you off your own floor.
Comments. Woo-wee! The only way to win this game is for Caitlin Clark to say F White and do her own thing. And this may be the comment of the night. I just want one of the media members to ask Stephanie White postgame, quote, do you believe you should still have a job?
Look at the fan reaction in real time. The Indiana Fever's halftime post on social media got ratioed into oblivion. 85 likes to 159 comments. By the end of the game, that ratio got worse. Fans weren't just disappointed, they were demanding accountability. One comment cut through all the noise. I just want one of the media members to ask Stephanie White postgame, do you believe you should still have a job? That's not a hot take from some random troll. That's a legitimate question after watching your team get dominated by an expansion franchise.
This was one of the worst showings I have ever seen from any basketball team. Look, I'm old. I'm not old, but I'm old school, and I'm old enough to remember a former Indianapolis Colts coach named Jim Mora getting asked about the Colts back in the day about, can this team make the playoffs? And he very famously said, playoffs? Playoffs?
Here's the context that makes this loss even more damaging. Stephanie White came to Indiana with a specific reputation: defensive guru, disciplined system, championship pedigree. She won a title with the Fever back in 2012 as a player. She coached Connecticut to success. The entire pitch for hiring her was that she'd bring structure and accountability to a young team. But what we're seeing is the opposite. The Fever's defensive rotations are confused, their offensive sets look disjointed, and most critically, the team's best player is being relegated to a secondary role.
Yeah, we need to get the ball into the post and yada, yada, yada. What bothers me the most is it's starting to sound like Stephanie White has finally beat down Caitlin Clark. And it's really concerning. Like, I'm at the point now where I'm literally saying, you fire Stephanie White or trade Caitlin Clark, because her career is going to be ruined. Her career is going to be ruined if something does not happen.
Caitlin Clark's usage has dropped significantly under Stephanie White's system. During her rookie season under Christy Sides, Clark was the clear focal point, sometimes to a fault, but at least the offense ran through her creativity and playmaking. This season, White has implemented a post-oriented system designed to feature Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell. In theory, that creates balance. In practice, it's neutered the player who drives fan interest and creates the most efficient offense. Against Golden State, Boston scored 18 points and Mitchell added 17. On paper, that looks fine, but watch the fourth quarter. White left them in to pad stats when the game was already decided. The Valkyries were up by 20-plus points. There was no realistic path to a comeback. Yet White kept her starters in, letting them accumulate numbers in garbage time while the actual competitive portion of the game had been lost hours earlier. That's not player development, that's optics management.
I guarantee that. Tell me what you think, guys. Get Stephanie White out of the building. Peace, I'm out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
Now here's where this gets personal for Caitlin Clark. A video surfaced after this game of her talking to reporters about the team's offensive approach. She's explaining how they need to get the ball into the post more, how they need to be patient with the system, how they're still learning to play together. And the tone in her voice, that's not confidence, that's someone who's been coached into submission. Clark came into the WNBA with this fearless, aggressive mentality. She took over games at Iowa by sheer force of will. 6 months into playing for Stephanie White, she's talking like a role player who needs to defer. That transformation should terrify Indiana Fever fans. Because what made Caitlin Clark special wasn't just her shooting or her passing, it was her mindset. She believed she was the best player on the floor and played like it. That confidence created opportunities for everyone else. Defenders had to account for her at all times, which opened up driving lanes for Mitchell and post touches for Boston. The entire offense functioned better when Clark was aggressive. Under White's system, Clark is being asked to facilitate within a structure rather than create off instinct. And look, there's merit to teaching a young player how to operate in a system, but when that system is producing 31% shooting against an expansion team, maybe the system is the problem. Maybe forcing your generational talent to play like a traditional point guard instead of letting her be a dynamic offensive weapon is actually making your team worse. The comparison to her rookie season is stark. Under Christy Sides, Indiana had offensive identity issues and defensive breakdowns, but they were competitive, they made the playoffs, they pushed teams in the postseason. This season they're getting blown out by a team that literally didn't exist last year. The Valkyries are playing with more cohesion, more purpose, more fight than a Fever team that's supposed to be building toward championship contention. Let's address the elephant in the room, the idea that criticizing Stephanie White after one bad loss is an overreaction. Except this isn't one bad loss, this is a pattern. The Fever have struggled with offensive execution all season. Their defensive rotations, which were supposed to be White's specialty, have been inconsistent at best. The substitution patterns have been questionable in multiple games, and most importantly, the team's best player is visibly less aggressive and less impactful than she was as a rookie. When an expansion team has a better record than your franchise, that's not about talent. The Valkyries don't have anyone close to Caitlin Clark's ability. They don't have Aliyah Boston's interior presence or Kelsey Mitchell's scoring punch. What they have is a coherent system, players who understand their roles, and coaching that maximizes their collective talent. Indiana has more individual talent and less team success. That's the definition of a coaching problem. The fan reaction isn't coming from nowhere. These aren't casual viewers who just started watching because of Clark. These are people who followed the Fever for years, who understand WNBA basketball, who can see when something isn't working. And what they're seeing is a coach who's trying to fit elite talent into a rigid system instead of building a system around elite talent. Think about the great coaches in basketball history. They adapt to their personnel. Phil Jackson didn't run the triangle the same way with Shaq and Kobe as he did with Jordan and Pippen. Greg Popovich completely changed San Antonio's offensive philosophy when they got Kawhi Leonard. Great coaches maximize their best players' strengths. Stephanie White is doing the opposite. She's minimizing Caitlin Clark's impact to prove her system works. And here's the thing about systems, they only matter if they produce results. White's defensive schemes haven't made Indiana a top defensive team. Her offensive structure hasn't created efficient scoring. Her rotations haven't maximized the roster. So what exactly is the system accomplishing besides making the team's best player less effective? The Golden State loss crystallized all of these issues in one nationally televised game. It wasn't just that Indiana lost, it's that they looked unprepared, unorganized, and unmotivated against a team they should have dominated. That's a direct reflection of coaching. Players don't come out flat and disengage by accident. That happens when they don't believe in what they're being asked to do. Watch Caitlin Clark's body language on the bench during that game. She's not engaged, she's not coaching up teammates, she's sitting there looking defeated. That's not the same player who was barking orders and firing up her team during her rookie season. Something has changed. And the most obvious explanation is that Stephanie White's system has broken her spirit. The question Indiana's front office needs to ask is simple. Do you want to be right or do you want to win? Because right now, they're committed to a coaching hire that made sense on paper but isn't working on the court. They can keep defending Stephanie White, keep talking about patience and process and learning the system. Or they can acknowledge that when you have a generational talent, you build around that talent, not force them to conform to a predetermined philosophy. The comparison to Clark's rookie season keeps coming up because it's relevant. She was the same player then that she is now, same skills, same basketball IQ, same competitive drive. The difference is the coaching. Christy Sides had her flaws, absolutely. But she let Caitlin Clark be Caitlin Clark. Stephanie White is trying to turn her into something else, and in the process, she's making the entire team worse. So here's what needs to happen. Either Stephanie White adapts her system to feature Clark's strengths, or Indiana needs to make a change. Because watching a generational talent get minimized in a rigid system that isn't producing wins is malpractice. The Fever didn't draft Caitlin Clark first overall to turn her into a traditional point guard. They drafted her to be a superstar. And right now, their coaching is preventing that from happening. The fans aren't wrong to be furious. The media members asking tough questions aren't being unfair. This is a legitimate crisis. An expansion team just embarrassed the Indiana Fever on national television. And the coach's response was to keep running the same system that got them destroyed in the first place. That's not stubbornness, that's negligence. So what do you think? Is Stephanie White the right coach for this team, or is it time for Indiana to admit they made a mistake? Because from where I'm sitting, watching Caitlin Clark get benched while an expansion team runs up the score, the answer is pretty clear. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you think I'm wrong, tell me why. Because I'd love to hear how losing to the Golden State Valkyries by double digits is somehow part of a winning process.